The wind howled across the jagged peaks of the crystallis range, carrying with it flakes of sparkling frost that shimmered like tiny stars in the dying light of the twin suns. Down in the valley, a ragged figure huddled beneath a makeshift tarp. She was large, scaled, and powerful, her wings crumpled against her back, her tail dragging through the dirt. The villagers called her a dragon, though in truth she was no myth. She was real, tired, and hungry, and she had nowhere to go. Her name was Sith, once a proud guardian of the high skies, now reduced to scavenging for scraps in a world that had long since forgotten dragons. Hunger gnawed at her belly, and her throat was raw from days without water. Even her scales, once polished and glimmering, were dulled with grime. And yet she didn't beg. Not really. She just hid in the shadows, hoping to survive another night. That night, as Cythera curled herself near a frozen stream, a tiny figure approached. The girl's small boots crunched softly against the icy ground, and in her hand she carried something clutched tightly against her chest. "Papa says dragons are scary," the girl whispered, her breath forming little clouds in the cold air. "But you don't look scary." Cythera lifted her head slowly, surprised. Most humans didn't dare approach, especially children. She expected fear, screams, maybe even an arrow. Instead, she saw a small girl with curious eyes, a warm scarf wrapped around her neck, and a single cookie half eaten clutched to her chest. The dragon lowered her massive head to the girl's level, trying not to seem threatening. I'm not here to hurt you," she rasped. Her voice was rough, hoarse from days without use. The girl's eyes widened. "Really?" She stepped closer, then hesitated. "Papa said dragons hoard things. He said you take and never give back. But I want to share." Cythera felt a pang deep in her chest. She had spent decades in the sky, guarding treasures and protecting kingdoms. Now, stripped of everything, she had nothing but hunger and sorrow. The girl's words were strange, alien, yet comforting. The girl looked up at her with hopeful eyes. "If I share my cookie, will you keep it?" Cythera blinked. She had heard humans speak of kindness before, but she had never experienced it herself. Not from humans, always from dragons, but never from the small, fragile creatures who had once cowered under her shadow. The girl's small hand extended the cookie. Trembling slightly, Cythera lowered her claw and gently took it. She had expected to eat it greedily, to devour it in one bite like a starving beast. But instead, she nudged it toward the girl's hand. "Keep it," Cythera said, her voice breaking. "It is yours." The girl laughed, a soft, musical sound that seemed to warm the frozen air around them. "No, you take it. You're hungry." Cythera shook her massive head. "You are giving it, freely. I have no right to take what you offer from love, not necessity." The girl's laughter faded into a thoughtful frown. "But aren't you supposed to be scary? Aren't dragons supposed to take everything?" "I was," Cythera admitted, her gaze dropping. "But not anymore. Not here. Not now." The girl, whose name was Lyra, tilted her head. Then, slowly, she sat on the snow beside Cythera. "Then we can share it together," she said. "Half for you, half for me." For the first time in years, Cythera allowed herself to smile. Carefully, she nibbled at her half, savoring not just the taste, but the act of being trusted, being offered kindness unconditionally. Lyra's small hand reached out and brushed against Cythera's claw. Tentative and brave. "You're soft," Lyra whispered. I thought dragons were all hard scales and fire. Cythera chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that made the ice beneath them tremble. We are hard when we must be, but we have softness, too. Most forget. They sat like that for a while, two unlikely companions in the middle of a harsh, indifferent world. Night fell, and the stars above the crystalless peaks shimmered like 1,000 watchful eyes. Lyra shivered, and Cythera instinctively wrapped a wing around her. "You're warm," Lyra said, leaning against the dragon's side. "Papa says people are supposed to keep things safe. Dragons hoard treasures, but I think kindness is a treasure, too." Cythera's heart thumped in her chest. She had hoarded treasures once: gold, jewels, priceless artifacts, but none had ever given her this feeling. None had ever made her want to protect, not herself, but someone else. Days passed. Lyra returned each day with scraps of food, blankets, even stories from her village. Cythera taught Lyra to fly, or rather, to trust her wings enough to ride on her back as she leaped into the sky. The villagers whispered about the dragon in the crystalless valley, but none dared approach when they saw Lyra smiling atop her scaled companion. One morning, the village elder came to Lyra's home, frowning. "Child," he said, "you are playing with the dragon. It is dangerous. You must leave her." Lyra shook her head fiercely. "No, she saved me from being alone. She is kind. She doesn't take unless she is given. You don't understand." The elder looked at the dragon sleeping nearby, her massive form coiled like a mountain. For the first time, he saw not a monster, but a guardian, a protector. He saw the way the girl trusted her completely. "Perhaps we have misunderstood," he murmured. Word spread, slowly, until the villagers began leaving food and supplies for Cythera, encouraged by Lyra's insistence and bravery. The dragon that had once been hunted, feared, and forgotten became the valley's silent protector. No one dared harm a child or wander into danger, for Cythera watched over them all years later, when Lyra was grown. She stood at the edge of the cliff, overlooking the crystalless range. Cythera, her scales now gleaming in the twin suns, landed beside her. "You kept your promise," Lyra said, holding up a small tin of cookies. "All these years, I've shared my cookies. You've kept them. And more than that, you've kept me safe." Cythera lowered her massive head, nuzzling Lyra gently. "And you have kept me alive in a way I never thought possible." The two shared a quiet laugh, and in that laughter was the essence of humanity itself, the kindness, bravery, and generosity that could turn even a starving, forgotten dragon into a guardian, and a frightened little girl into the bravest soul in the valley. From that day forward, whenever travelers passed through the crystalless range, they would see a dragon perched on the peaks, watching, waiting not to hoard treasures, but to protect those who had shown her the greatest treasure of all: love freely given and trust freely earned. And Lyra, she never stopped sharing cookies, but now she knew it wasn't the cookies that mattered. It was the act of giving, and of keeping promises, no matter how unlikely they seemed. Asterisk.